Hey besties, welcome in. I'm Sabrina, for those of you who don't know me yet. And this is Sabrina Reads and Roams, where I mostly read, but I also roam, aka I go on work trips, and they are not glamorous at all. And sometimes I just do both. I read while I roam, and I upload videos every single week. So today's video, we are going to talk about my March reads, and there were a lot of them. I don't even know what happened. So buckle up and let's get started. Okay, so my first read for the month, and hopefully you can see that because the book itself is basically white and so is the lighting. Anyway, my first read for the month was If We Were Villains. I read this in paperback. This is by ML Rio. It's got a nice spread there, which is always my jam. Hold on, I got notes. Okay, so for this one, you may have seen it in my week of reads a couple of videos ago. Overall, I like the book. Like, I love the idea of the book. So a quick summary, these are students who are going to a hoity-toity arts college. These are the actors at the college, and they exclusively perform Shakespearean works. And so there's basically like a murder amongst them and a whodunit, and it's told from the perspective of one of the characters who went to jail for the murder. And it's basically like trying to figure out if he really did it, who did it. They are actors, so like it's hard to tell who's telling the truth and who's not telling the truth. And then here's the other thing, is that they primarily speak to each other in Shakespearean prose, which is like wild if you ask me, but okay. So I love the premise of the book. I like that they spoke in Shakespeare, like that they did all the Shakespeare things. Like that to me was really cool. I don't know though. I got like partway through the book, I got like super like distracted by it all. And there were two things particularly that just threw me off in the book. First, which I mentioned in my weekly read, is that the author is not British. The story does not take place in Britain. None of the people who use this particular word are British, but throughout most of the book, they refer to the devil's lettuce as a spliff. And I'm like, we don't use that word in the United States of America, so please stop it. But then, like, inexplicably, about, I don't know, 70% of the way through the book, it's like it got a new editor because they stopped using the word spliff and actually used the J word, I believe it was. And the writing went from just writing to almost exclusively parentheticals. And like, I don't really understand why. And it was so distracting. So, I mean, I had some issues with the book, but I loved the story and I felt like it flowed pretty well, and I was like into it until the end. So I said that I love the depravity of the characters, I love the Shakespearean prose, and even the works that like I am not familiar with, like I was still able to follow along, so that was cool. At some point I did get a little like, can they not just hold a regular conversation without dropping into Shakespeare? You guys. So overall, I mean, I liked the book and I gave it a 4-star. So, you know, that was good. And I promise you guys, I am working on not giving every book a 5-star. Although, I don't know. Should I lean into that? Should I be more critical? Like, I'm a good times reader, right? So if I had a good time, to me, it's a 5-star. Then, I read on my Kindle, and I'm holding the Kindle because I feel awkward not holding something, but I read on my Kindle Crying in H Mart. It's an autobiography, and it's about a character, a person, and her journey through her mother's cancer, and kind of like the impacts that has on her life and the things that she remembers and stuff like that. It's called Crying in H Mart, and the number one thing that I wrote down in my list was, did she actually cry in H Mart? I don't remember. And I don't know if it's because the book just kind of drug on for so long or if I just genuinely can't remember. I do not have the best of memories, so maybe that's just on me. But I also said it's more like crying in my book because it was, for me, it kind of like, you know, it took me on an emotional journey. I talked about this again in the the week of reading vlog, where like I've had cancer, and so it just kind of like it hit me in the feels a little bit. My friends who are in the group chat with the oddly specific name, the Spiny Bob girls, they know what's up. Like, I needed a broom during this during the read of this book. So, you know, I don't want to get too touchy-feely. Like, that's just not what I want to do. I want to have a good time. That being said, I gave it 4 stars. It was a good book. I enjoyed reading it, but I didn't like love it. I would still totally recommend it. So that was Crying in H Mart. And I'm gonna put the Kindle down because I realized that I'm just like flapping it around a lot. Anyway, so after Crying in H Mart, then I listened to Open Book, Jessica Simpson's memoir. I listened to that on audiobook. I loved it. So that is one that I started last year and then was like, I don't want to listen to this. Like, I'm not interested in it. But I went back to it because my little brain can't stand to have something unfinished. I don't like to DNF anything. So if I DNF, first of all, if I DNF, you know it's bad because I do not like to leave it unfinished. That being said, I was like, let me go finish it. It should be a quick listen. And apparently the part that I left off on the book was like the best part ever. So I went into this in a previous video. I'm not going to get into it again, but like, yes, I am team Jessica Simpson. Okay. I probably had 60% of the book left to listen to when I started it. So I counted it for this month. I also rated that one 4 stars. You're going to see a theme here. I got a lot of 4 stars this month. Actually, I just looked at my list. I only have 1 5-star. Okay, so I'm being a little more critical. I'm being a little less giving of my stars now. Okay? All right, cool. Then I read The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Poston? I don't know. This was so cute. I'm not a huge romance girly. I do like romance from time to time. I tend to use it as like a palate cleanser because I read a lot of fantasy and like sci-fi that takes a lot of brain power. So when I read a romance, it's usually to have like some sort of palate cleanser, a little filler in between the next fantasy to kind of clear my mind. And so that was my intent when I picked this book up. She did her job. She did her job. The other thing that I want to say is that I also like super love anything that has to do with time travel, time variance, anything like that. I'm super into. I think it's mostly because I can't really wrap my brain around it, but also because I like really want it to happen to me. So this delivered. I think my main criticism, which is a lot of the times my criticism with most romance books, is they fell like in desperate love with each other in the course of like a weekend. Come now. Really? But I mean, it was a cute book, so I'll give it to them. You know, sometimes when you know, right? My husband says when you know, like he said that he knew like when he met me, like he said it was like on sight, like he knew I was gonna be his wife. I was like, that's a bit much, sir, but okay. So I guess when you know, and if you spend a gorgeous weekend stuck in an apartment together with each other, then it is what it is, right? So that was like my really only criticism about the book, I think. I will say that I found it to be extremely bingeable. Like I read 135 pages of this book in one day. Usually for me, I'm reading 2 different books at the same time, and I will read about 100 pages between the 2 of them, maybe like 140 pages most between the 2 different books in a day. And like I said, 135 pages in one day of this book alone. And I think that I read so many like sci-fi fantasies that I forget how light and fluffy a romance can really be. There was one quote from the book that I just thought was like so poignant about being in your 20s. It says, and there was a gap between early 20s and late 20s that only people existing in bodies in their late 20s understood. You could still fight God, but you had to ice your knees afterwards. Girl, yes, as someone who lived through her 20s and now my knees have quit on me, Yes, because I don't know what I was doing in my 20s, but like I was a tank. Like I could go all night, cruise around town, or cut up on the dance floor. I could fight somebody in the parking lot, go home and hit a nap and then go to work. By like 29, that was all she wrote on that. So I just found like that quote to be so perfectly descriptive of early 20s versus late 20s. And the last thing that I wanted to say about this book is Lemon Forever. So, oh wait, I guess I forgot to say that I gave it 4 stars. So yeah, good book. Okay, so after the 7-year slip, I read an arc of something called Tangled in Vows. I'm pretty new to BookTube, and I found a company that was like, we give arcs to anyone who asks. You don't have to have a specific follower count or anything like that. So I'm like, sign me up. I want to see what the arc life is like, right? So that was my first mistake. So I got an arc of a book called Tangled in Vows, and I read it. I was enthusiastic about reading it, and I definitely wanted to make sure I gave it a fair shot. I think that this book was not for me. The story itself, to me, read very like YA, or honestly even middle grades, but it was definitely spicy AF. So it was not, well, certainly wasn't middle grade. And I would not say that it was YA, okay? Yeah, it was very explicit. So the whole thing to me was a little bit confusing, who the target audience was supposed to be. I suppose it had a cute story premise. I just don't feel like it really delivered on it. I'll also say that I just personally think the whole like alpha male, like touch her and die, that situation is not my jam. Listen, I love it in real life, but I don't think I want to read about that. So I think that is primarily one of my issues, is that it's just not a thing that I want to read about. I don't like mafia vibes, and I don't enjoy reading about the touch her or die for the most part. The other complaint that I really had about this book is the fat phobia. So when the female main character is a person who casually bashes her own body, her own weight, and it's not something that's central to the story. So if I'm reading a story that is about overcoming your body issues, or about someone who, say, has an eating disorder or something like that, where it makes sense that you would be discussing your body image and weight in such a way, I'm fine with it. But this is just egregiously calling herself fat, and like, I don't get it, and I don't know why it needed to be in the book, other than to just remind people that fat people are disgusting, right? Like, which is not true. If you can't read the sarcasm in my voice, that's absolutely not. And so, you know, in this book, there was a lot of like asides about like not being lovable or not being pick upable or whatever. And I'm like, it's not even necessary to say this. Like, we've gained nothing in the story by her mentioning that. And I don't understand why it's being said. Like, please. And I even went and I Googled the author to be like, is she a fat girl? To see if that's why it was in there. No. So here's a quote. Her body is rounder, reminding me of my own, but the two men are clearly enjoying it. That's the FMC talking about some other girl she saw at the sex club, getting it on, getting her freak on with two dudes in the corner. Why? Why is that unnecessary? Like, it added nothing to the story whatsoever. It wasn't even like she had this complex about her body that was like well thought out and developed. Added absolutely nothing to the story. Miss me with that shit. The other issue is that in this book, therapy, like there's a huge traumatic event that happens in this book. Therapy completely glazed over. It's something that they're all doing, but like they're not really talking Like, they mention it as if it's central to the story. Like, oh, we're all getting therapy to get over this trauma, and it was a good day at the park. Like, it's it's handled so poorly. While they're at therapy, the one thing that they're not talking about is their codependent toxic relationship. And like, it is bad, like bad. And I don't know, like, I guess good for you. This might be the book that you love, but for me, it just did not hit at all. So I honestly rated it 3 stars, but I think it should have been a 2. There's that. Anyway, after that, I moved on to another audiobook, and this one was called The Dictionary of Lost Words. This is about a woman who is, it's a woman who, as a child, she grew up in the place where they were making the first like real dictionary, under the desk where her father worked. Her mother died, I think, in childbirth. And honestly, you guys, March was such a long month. I am trying so hard to remember all the way back to the beginning of the month when I listened to this book. I love a book that is about language, dictionaries, words, anything like that. Libraries. I love those kind of books. I love a historical fiction. But I thought it was a nice listen. I think the book was decent. But what happened was it started off really good, really strong. And then at some point, it just became like random short chapters of like getting you to the end. It was like the author just gave up. Like, she didn't want to write the book anymore, but she was under contract or something. I don't know. It just kind of like fell at a certain point. And I was like, well, okay. I wrote in my notes about it when I was listening to it. I said it was a nice listen, nothing to write home about. It could have been a lot more, but it felt like it was confused. It felt like it was confused. So then I was confused because it was confused. And that's what happened to that ending of the book. But again, the first 75% of it was so good. So I don't know what to do with this book. I also wrote that it felt like it had a beautiful build-up and then sputtered out of control with a few snippets of a bunch of things instead of focusing on the actual story we were promised by the opening part of the book. So yeah, and I wrote this down because I knew that like by the time I filmed this video, it would have been like 6.5 months later. So yeah, but I gave it 3 stars. So, you know, it wasn't terrible. But then compare that to the book that I thought was terrible, and I also gave it 3 stars. So I need to work on that, don't I? Okay, anyway. As soon as that ended, I was still on the road, and it was suggested to me that I listen to The Butcher and the Black... No, that's not what it's called. The Knight and the Butcher Bird, a short by Alex E. Harrow. So I decided to listen to this little shorty on a whim. Honestly, it was suggested to me and it matched the length of time that I had left in my drive. So why not, right? It was a fun mix of like futuristic and contemporary. It was a bit confusing at first, and I was like, did I miss part of this book? Like, is there something that I was supposed to know coming into this? Like, is there a priori knowledge that I just don't have? But then like it started coming together about midway through, and I was like, oh, okay, I got you. At one point, I asked myself, are these people or are they birds? I don't really know. And here's the thing, I can't actually tell you what it was about, but I think you should go listen to it. I feel like there was like a fable in there somewhere, like a big lesson we were supposed to learn. I guess, I don't know what it was, but it was funny. So that's the thing that I remember, is that even though I could not tell you really what it was about, I thought it was funny. Like, it made me laugh out loud multiple times. So, you know, it's a good short read if you just want to like bang something out really quick. I would highly recommend it, and maybe you can then tell me what it's about, or if you've listened to that story, can you please in the comments tell me what it was about and what I was supposed to take away from it. I'm sorry, Alex, I don't mean to do you like this, but I had a good time. I do know that at one point the knight started talking in like medieval English, even though it was like, I think it was like the 1990s. I don't really know. And they were like talking about Michigan. So the whole thing was crazy. I gave it 4 stars. Okay, so after that, I read on my Kindle Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. The writing style in this book was interesting, but I'm just choosing to believe that it was necessary for the character, like to convey the mental instability of the FMC. For me, it was a quick read. I thought it was kind of a big book, but it was a quick read, and it just kind of like ended by surprise. So like the one thing with reading on Kindle is sometimes it will tell you that you're like 75% way through the book, and then the next thing you know, the book is done. And there's all this other stuff at the end of the Kindle book, and like, no, I didn't have 4 more hours of reading. Like, I'm actually done. So for me, this is one of the ones where it ended as a surprise, and I was like, oh, that's the end. But the reason it was like that is because on Kindle, it included the novella Destroy Me, which is the point of view of the main antagonist, where he is reliving the ending chapter. So this is a YA dystopian situation, and basically the FMC has a thing where if you touch her, it destroys you. She's locked in an asylum because of that. And it's just kind of about how everyone's cruel to her, and then she is pulled out of the asylum by this guy. He's like the son of the head of the new government now that we're in this dystopian future, and he's basically trying to use her as a weapon, and she doesn't want to be used as a weapon. So then, of course, you know, there's someone who wants to try to save her, and that's what the story is about. There are like 12 books in this series, and she's still writing it. One of my favorite things is that Tahereh is married to one of the authors that I used to love way back in the day. The author Ransom Briggs of Miss Peregrine. Yeah. So anyway, that's an aside. So I gave Shatter Me 3 stars. Hear me out though. I gave it 3 stars because it didn't feel like it was a complete story, which it is not. So that makes sense. But I think I just wanted it to be a little more complete as book 1. Like, it didn't exactly ask me to come back and read the rest of it, right? It was just kind of like, ho-hum. Had I not had the novella attached to it, which if you read the physical books, the novella is a separate book, but had it not been attached to it in Kindle, I don't think I would have continued this series. The novella is what has made me want to read the rest of this series. That being said, the novella Destroy Me, I gave 4 stars because it was good. It was such a good like look at the alternate perspective of what was happening, and I think maybe it was just nice to get out of the FMC's head. Like she's a little crazy, she's a little cuckoo, but it's not really her fault because people have, like, even her parents shunned her. She's been locked in an asylum forever, so not totally her own fault, but she's a little cuckoo. So, you know, it was nice to get out of her head. Okay. After that, you guys, I hopped back to Audible, and I said hop back to Audible, like I don't do all of this concurrently, but this just goes in the order of which I finished them. So after that, back on Audible, I listened to The Push. What can I say about The Push? So this is about a woman who has a tumultuous past with her mother, and her mother with her mother, and so on and so on. Like, the women in her family are cursed to be really terrible mothers, and that's kind of the main premise of it. So we get the perspective of her mom as a child dealing with her mother, and then her as a child dealing with her own mother, and then her as a new mother dealing with her daughter, who is honestly probably a psychopath. But her husband, red flags for her husband Fox. I mean, the whole man is a red flag, if we're being honest with you. He basically gaslights her about the whole thing, but then was he gaslighting her, or is she just cuckoo and we are being gaslit by her, by the mom, right? Blythe. Which, okay, one thing, the narrator in this story pronounces Blythe as Blythe, and I don't think that's right, but I don't like it. Maybe it is right. Either way, I don't like it, so that bothered me. That bothered me. Like, I don't know. I mean, either way, Fox, that's the husband's name, which we should have known from the jump because his name is Fox, but he's just a whole walking red flag. Either way, he was super invalidating of Blythe's experience. And so like, there are ways, even if Blythe, who is the narrator, even if she was telling us complete lies, there are ways that Fox could have handled that situation and been a more loving, supportive partner than he was, because he was kind of like, it's in your head, girl. Now, in my notes, I marked him down as Crimson, like, please. So I also wrote in my notes that chapter 45 was rough. And I mean rough. So just be prepared if you are an anxious mother, just trigger warnings up, okay? The pure agony of this mother's experience in this chapter, it was written so well. I, who do not have children of my own, felt like I was there in that very traumatizing situation with her. And I bawled like a little bitch. I don't have a whole lot more to say about that book without giving it away, because the other thing that I want to talk about is that ending. And I don't want to give that away. So I'm just going to say that ending. Y'all go read or listen to this book. I gave it 4 stars. Can't give it 5 because the husband trashed. So he lost the whole book a star just by being unsupportive. But go listen to it. Come back and tell me what you thought about the ending. Okay, finally, back to a physical book. So then for book club, which you can see I annotated, for book club, we read The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. She cute. It's a cute little read. I mean, and by cute, I mean it was a little bit of a thriller, but you know, I don't know, girl, I guess. This was not my vote for book club, so I got outvoted, yay. Which I got outvoted this one too, but whatever. But you know, I read it with the girlies. There were moments of the book that I enjoyed. I mean, I even clutched my pearls at some parts of it. I laughed out loud, but in general, it was just kind of meh. I don't really know what I was expecting out of this book, but it just didn't hit for me. So the premise of this book is there is a girl, our main character. She's, you know, a product of the foster care system, and she is walking dogs in a wealthy neighborhood to make money. And she basically infiltrates the neighborhood and becomes one of them. She gets hooked up with this one guy whose dog she was walking. She ends up like, did they actually get married? I can't remember if they made it all the way to getting married or not, but you know, she's orchestrating this. She's like pulling strings to make this relationship move forward, even though I don't know that she really cared that much about him, but she wanted the lifestyle. As the title suggests, there is a wife upstairs locked in a closet. Now, our main character doesn't know about this until near the end of the book, but it's cray cray, okay? So, I mean, it was easy to guess the twist kind of early on, even though I will say it did take a couple of detours where I was like, wait a minute, is that not what happened? Like, it's so obvious to me that that's what happened, but then you're saying this, so is that not what actually happens? But turns out I was right. So, you know, twisty-turny, but easy to predict. So if you like easy to predict books and you just want to read something to read it, this is your girl. I did have fun annotating, so there's that. I love a good color-coded annotation. And I mean, I gave it a 3-star. Then I read Babel, but we're gonna come back to that in just a second, because I listened to Only for the Week. I don't even know how I fit in this many audiobooks in 1 month, but Only for the Week, oh my god, you guys, I am blushing over here. So like, the way that my mouth was open, my pearls were clutched throughout half of the book. Like, I will say, the narrators of this book were not it for me. It was a male-female narrator set. They were not it for me. Some of the like voices that they gave to characters, like, oh my god, and then like the male narrator doing a female voice, they also like mispronounced some words, and I was like, I don't want to be an elitist, but if you're narrating an audiobook, I feel like that is a minimum qualification, like, that you couldn't pronounce. So like at one point, and like this, it stands out so clear to me. At one point the word was chortle and the narrator said chordle, and I was like, rewind that back. What, what'd you say? So like to me that is really distracting in an audiobook, and so I just want better. However, the male narrator narrating the main male character, yes. And let me tell you, Rome is book bay. Okay, like, hear me out, hear me out. Cassian will always be my number one, right? But Cassian, I know how this is gonna sound. Cassian is a fictional character. So if I'm in the fantasy realm, it's Cassian all day, every day. In the real world, it's Rome, okay? I love, love, love black love. So that's always nice to hear, see, and read about. So, you know, the narrator's not great. The spice, African-American excellence, 100%. Rome is bae. And these dudes are rich? Bet. Like, I bet, okay? So I gave Only for the Week 4 stars. 4.5. We're gonna give it 4.5 stars because it was that kind of good. Do not listen to this with your children in the car, okay? My last physical book for the month was The Near Witch by the glorious V.E. Schwab. This is basically like her first book. I liked it. It was a good enough story. It was a lovely story. It didn't blow me away. It was very much giving my first book, which is what it was. So she even says that in the intro, that this was like basically the first story that she wrote. And it's giving that, but like you can also see like little Easter eggs to her more current relevant works. And like the magic systems and things like that. So this is about a little colonial town maybe, and there's stories that have been told through the generations about a witch who used to be there. The town is called Near, so she was the Near Witch, and in this book children are going missing, and so it's kind of a race to find the children who are missing, and this mysterious stranger boy who pops into town is being blamed for it. Is he to blame? I don't know. Is it the Near Witch who's been dead for hundreds of years? I don't know. But that's the story of the Near Witch. And at the end, there's a short story called The Ashbourne Boy, which is about the stranger who popped into town here, and it's his backstory. I'm not going to say anything about that because it will just give away the whole thing. And I, for one, liked the pleasant surprise of getting his backstory. And like, I was like, I had no, like, this was never on my radar for that being his backstory. That's how I felt when I started. I was like, say what? But anyway, my heart for the stranger boy. And I gave the Near Witch and the Ashbourne Boy both 4 stars. Let's talk about my last read of the month. So Babel. I read Babel on the Kindle. My God, you guys, what a book. And I mean, I just finished Babel yesterday as I'm filming this. So she was dense AF. Like, yes, this is a read you're gonna need to buckle in for. But I will say that the way that I was shaking my head on literally like every other page of this book at the racism that unfortunately still exists today, even though this book was written to be occurring in like the 1800s. So it is about a man who is taken from his home country by a benefactor in England and raised in England and then sent to Babel, which is one of the colleges of Oxford. Obviously that part is made up, but like the rest of it, like Oxford and all that stuff. So Babel is one of the colleges at Oxford, and they do translation services there, and the magic of the world is that everything runs on translating words onto silver bars, and it's kind of like the thing that's lost in translation is what the magical act is that comes out of the bar. Anyway, all of that, and it's basically about colonialism and racism and just like trying to fit into a society like this, and the effects and the impacts of that are absolutely devastating. So in my notes I just have some funny little things that I wrote not murder on the high seas. I can't tell you more about that because it'll just give away a whole bunch of stuff about the book, but listen. But I will say, when that happened, the way I just did not see that coming whatsoever. Like, it happened and I was like I literally put the book down and I was like, what? Like, I just didn't see it coming, and it kind of happened on the page like so casual. Like it was just mentioned casually. It wasn't like a huge buildup, you know what I mean? So what? Listen, every chapter in this book had an oh my god moment for me. And it was very tense. And towards the end of the book, it just escalated so fast. And like your girl was tense. I was on the edge of my seat and I was plowing through these 500 some odd almost 600 pages because I just needed to know how it was going to end. I had my suspicions, but I didn't know and I needed to get there. So basically the story of this story is question everything. Colonialism is the devil, and that's still very relevant in 2025 somehow, some way. Like we've not progressed at all really. This book, while it affirmed my overall sense of both belonging and not belonging, it is a book that will haunt me for the rest of my days. Like for real, I am unwell after having read that book. I think it is also an especially poignant time to have read this. So maybe that is adding to its impact, but you know, hats off to R.F. Kuang. Like, yes. I will say that the ending broke my heart. It turned my stomach, and I just want to say, reach out my hand and just say, Robin, I don't know what else I could say about that ending. Like that was an ending, and it made me immediately want to start reading the book again from the beginning. Like that's how good that was. That's how gripping it was for me. I just want to read the book into infinity. Okay, Rebecca, do you hear me? You've done it. So Babel was my only 5-star read for the month. Can you believe? She only gave 1 5-star for the month. That's wild. Those are my reads for the month. I will just list them right here. I'm not going to go back over them because this video is already dangerously long. And I was going to go right into my TBR for April, which in the filming world, I'm absolutely going to do that. But in the video world, I'm fairly certain that I am about to cut it and just make a second video out of that because I feel like this was really long because I read so many books. I am, for the month of April, trying to dial it down. Like, I don't know why I read so many books in the month of March. I don't know how that happened. I am not in a race, you know? So I am going to try to dial it down in April. We will see how that works out. I'm going to stop right here and I'm just going to say thanks for dropping by. Let me know what you thought about any of these books, if you've read them, if you have not read them and want to read them, because I really want to know. And I created this channel because I want to talk to people about books that I've read, but I want someone to talk back to me. So please leave a comment. You know, like and subscribe and all that, but most importantly, just leave a comment because I want to talk about the books that I read. Okay, I have things to say, more than what I've said in the video. Thank you for dropping by, and I will see you in the next video.